Thank you, Arnold, for joining me on Not Nosy, Just Curious podcast. And what I'm very curious about, I understand you're writing a book. I don't want to know what you're writing about. I want to know why.
Well, I have wanted to be a writer since I learned how to read and write as a little kid. And when you're that young, you don't necessarily think about how there's different kinds of writing, TV and magazine and technical. You just know what's in front of you, which for me was books, novels. I was an avid reader as a child. And so throughout my life, I've just kept up the habit of writing because it's a personal joy. But when I got to about my mid-20s, I realized that I hadn't attempted a novel yet. I've had done short stories, plays, personal essays. There was even a half-baked film screenplay in there, but I hadn't attempted a novel. And I thought I owed it to myself and that, 6-year-old version of myself to do it, because it seemed like the hardest thing that I could do. It seemed like the hardest goal that I could set for myself, but also achieve. I wouldn't try to be an Olympic swimmer. I don't have that in me, but I knew I could write a novel. But I haven't really given myself any kind of deadline on it. So I've been tinkering with it on and off for years.
Okay.
And
Do you think, Arnold, reading and writing is becoming a dinosaur? Do you think less and less people are reading, good old buying books and sitting down and reading? I mean, it seems like we're a society becoming very dumbed down. What do you think of that?
It does seem that way. It's certainly at a glance. I've actually thought a lot about that as I've been working on this, because writing can be kind of a isolating practice anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Just by default, you have to really live in your own mind, at least when you're doing something fiction. And then you think, well, who's going to read this and who's going to care, right? But yeah, I don't know. I know there are people out there that still love to read,
right?
But it does, when I'm online, it does seem like people's grammar is falling apart. So yeah, I definitely get a little bit of a dumbing down vibe, but I'm going to go for it anyway,
No, I encourage. I mean, do you get insecure at times? Do you question your confidence as you're writing?
Yeah, I mean, that's
You are
my
really
default
dipping your
mode.
toes. Yeah. Sorry.
No, sorry. That's my default mode, is to be insecure and underconfident. I will say that my confidence, I have an unshakable confidence in the idea that I'm built to do this. Whether I ever get paid for it is a completely different beast.
Do
But I
you
know
care?
that
I mean, you're not
I'm,
doing it for the money, which is the beauty of it.
I care about doing it for my own sake.
Mm-hmm.
When I finish this novel, whenever that is, I will attempt to sell it. I will attempt to get it published. I would love to get paid for it, but it's not the point. The point is to prove to myself that I can do it. And in theory, I would like to get to the end of this project and not feel so burnt out that I can't even conceive of doing another one. I would like to write more than one,
Okay.
but it's one thing at a time for sure.
Right, definitely.
But yeah, I'm always questioning. I think that's part of why it's taking me so long, is that I keep coming up with ideas, getting excited about them, attempting them, and then discarding them. And that's partially a confidence thing. It's partially not showing other people enough so that you can get an outsider's perspective. You can kind of psych yourself out if you don't, share the work.
So the ideas, Arnold, are they very cohesive to the original idea, or do you start just wandering all over the place?
There is kind of a through line throughout all of it. There have definitely been a lot of, wandering away and coming back. Recently, I kind of figured out what I was writing about, which sounds ridiculous, considering it's been over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get so wrapped up in the details and the different plot lines and different themes or motifs that you want to do that you can kind of forget the original germ of the idea. Sometimes the original inspiration is always with you, and other times it just leads you to what the thing is actually about. And either way is fine, as long as you pour yourself into it and stay focused. But yeah, it's there's definitely been a lot of like what to other people would seem like all over the map ideas, but to me it all kind of makes sense in theory in my head, but it's making it make sense to everyone else. That
Right. I get that, though. Being a creative mindset, you do have a tendency to overdo or overthink, or I mean, so
Yeah.
many projects, they're done, but I got to add a little more, and then I just ruined it by adding a little more, because as a creative creature, as you know, you don't know when to stop.
Right. Yeah. So
Right.
you've encountered that too, then, it sounds like?
Yes. I mean, what's good? Okay, that's good, but more may be better, but then more is not. So you have to.
Yeah. And the
Do
other
you,
thing that, sorry,
go
speaking of
ahead.
like more and less is more or more is more, you might think that because I've been kind of plugging away at this for so long that it's like this really long tome, but it's probably not going to be much more than like 50,000 words.
Which is how many pages to the lay
Give people,
person?
the page thing is tricky because it depends on like how big the font is and the dimensions of the page. But if you think of, and I'm going to throw out a title, and it's not like I think I'm nearly as good of a writer, but Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, that's a pretty popular book people tend to know. That book is about 50,000 words. It's a little bit under 50,000 words. I'm not saying that my book is going to be nearly as relevant as that was, but
Don't
that's
discount yourself, Arnold. Don't do that.
well, I don't want people to think, oh, he thinks he's the next Vonnegut or whatever.
Oh,
It's just
stop
that
being
that's a
humble.
book.
You got to blow
That's a
that
book
horn,
people know.
buddy. No, but that book is kind of thick.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not like, then you think of like, Infinite Jest or something, which is, I don't know, it's over 1,000 pages. It's got like 100+ pages of end notes. You need to have 2 bookmarks.
Oh,
It's not going
okay.
to be anything like that.
Okay,
For
so
sure.
it's not gonna
I'm going for short and sweet, but I need
Right.
it to be just right. I'm being very precious
Captivating.
about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because it's like you said, I read, but I picked up like The Great Gatsby, and I picked up F. Scott Fitzgerald, whatever, Paradise, whatever his first book was, and it's very melodic, and and I'm telling you, I had to look up words, Arnold, because I got away from all that very melodic kind of writing, So I do
Yeah.
think, I think we have simplified the reading process for most people.
Man, whenever I want to feel dumber than I already do, I pick up the Gatsby. Like I'm
Isn't that a
constantly having to
fact?
read. It's funny to me that it's such a widely taught book, like in high school. Like I just don't, I don't know. I don't think I ever really grasped it, really embraced it. And every time I pick it up, I just feel like too obtuse to get to figure it
I
out.
get it. I mean, I put that book down about 5 different times. I just challenged myself to finish it. I like the movie better.
I never saw, I know there was a recent one with Leo,
There's
right?
yes, it's fun because it's a musical, so it's fun and it's colorful and exciting. Yeah, it's fun. So don't you think, I mean, this was a very brave, I think, move for you to quit your job to do this. I mean, so respectable. I mean, how long did you ponder, I gotta just quit the job and do this and give it my all?
A lot. It's actually the second time that I've done this, and I did this same kind of thing when I was in my late 20s. I left the job on good terms, and I focused on the novel. This was in the much earlier days of it. But then I just got a little bit too freaked out by not having, by having a dwindling bank account. And I got lucky that I found a job relatively quickly. This time around, I'm searching every day, and it's a little bit demoralizing, to be honest. But the upside is that I have a lot of time and opportunity to also work on the novel. I wrote, last year I put together a draft that was about 32,000 words. So think of Of Mice and Men by Steinbeck. Again, not comparing myself to
No,
Steinbeck. You
I
want to talk
understand.
about melodic writing, man, Steinbeck. But, so about that length, more like novella length. And I was really proud that I did that. But in just going back over it now, I'm like, man, I really need to. There's too much on the surface. It needs to have more of an anchor, more of a grounded emotional anchor. Because what I'm doing is very sort of absurd and madcap, which is fine, whatever. But it needs to have a. I want it to have a resonance to it.
Are
So
you
it
your
needs
own
more.
worst critic?
I would say yes, but I don't know. I mean, I don't put myself out there enough for to even give people a chance to criticize me, but I'm probably, I definitely stand in my own way in life in general.
You do. Okay.
I don't mean to, but I always end up realizing later, like, oh, I should have done this or I should have done that.
Well,
But whatever.
we all should. You get that I should bullshit all the time. Everybody's got advice, but nobody's doing it. Nobody else is giving you know what you should do, Arnold, but nobody else is writing a book.
I know, take my advice because I'm not using it, that
Yeah.
whole thing. I will say that when I would love to live to a ripe old age. And if I get lucky enough to do that, I don't think I'm going to look back on this time and think, oh, I wish I hadn't written a book. Like I'm going to be happy that I did it, even if it ends up being not a very good book to read.
It'll be good. Stop it. Yeah, just like I said, I think it's very brave that you decided to thine own self be true. I wanted to write since I'm 6 and I'm writing.
It just seems
to do that, we all forget what we wanted to be when we were little. And when we were little, we had so much confidence about it,
There's, the part of me that is always doubting myself thinks maybe I'm just clinging to some silly childhood fantasy, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, what would the world be like if we were more true to ourselves, as you've been getting at,
Right.
I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing to make the effort, and if I fail, then I can say that I tried and I won't guess for the rest of my life,
But it seems like for you, failure is not an option because you have been writing. You have been writing short stories. You have been writing. So obviously you feel confident enough to do the bigger thing.
I'm going to do it. I'm not going to fail at the goal, which is to write the damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's always that nervousness. Will it, to anyone reading it, will it appear to be worth the time? But I can't think about that stuff. That's like the self-critic
Right.
that is important to have to an extent, but you can't let the self-critic constantly be in the driver's seat, which I think is what I've mistakenly done throughout the process, because it's my natural state is to question everything, including myself. So it's, whatever.
So are you good, Arnold, with criticism?
Yeah, I think I'm getting better and better. Do you mean like specifically within the context
Not
of like
self-criticism, but if you open the door to someone you cared and they criticized your work, would you be okay with that, or would you be shut down at that point?
At this point, I think I'm good with it.
You are.
One of the things that I did, a growing experience for me, was the previous draft that I finished, the one that was like, a little on the shorter side. I sent it to a few people to read and specifically asked them to give feedback. And one of the people that I sent it to, a college friend who's probably a genius and incredibly well read. Like he's forgotten more books than I've ever read. I've known him so long that I have a pretty good sense of his taste in writing, and I felt pretty confident that he would not like what I was doing, even if I did it really well. But I specifically sent him what I was working on because I wanted someone intelligent and well read to poke holes in what I was doing. So I think the fact that I sought that out is a good indicator. But, when you put your heart and soul into something and somebody like doesn't get it or just doesn't like it, there is that knee jerk response to be hurt, or maybe just to be defensive. Like, well, this is why I did it. I was trying to go through this. But ultimately it's like, if they're giving you good feedback, it's good feedback, and you just have to get over yourself. So I'm definitely open to it now. I'm stronger in that regard now than I was in my 20s. I don't know if I was ever fragile, but maybe a little shakier with that kind of stuff, feeling like any kind of criticism of the work was a personal attack when really it was just the person trying to help,
Yeah. Have you ever felt like just quitting?
With the novel, no. No. I mean, you put it on hiatus for a year or two. Sometimes you say, I can't think about this now. And then you come back to it later, and you've grown and experienced life, and things have happened to you, and you've made choices that inform your worldview. So when you go back to the work,
And then when you revisit it, are you pretty impressed with yourself?
Man, that's too strong a word, but you forget sometimes the things you wrote, and you're like, man, that was a good idea. I can't believe I had that. I can't believe I had that idea at such a young age.
Right.
I feel so much smarter now compared to my 28-year-old self, and I know that in 10 years I'll look back on my late 30s and think, man, what a moron that guy was. So you do surprise yourself with like moments of
brilliant,
moments of like clarity, I guess, is
okay. Do you ever is there such a thing as like writer's block?
It's definitely something people talk about and think that they have. I think for me, people tend to characterize it as like there's some sort of external force that's blocking them. And maybe that is the case for other people. For me, I think it's more just internal doubt kind of paralyzing me, or it's like everything that I write, I react to negatively. But I don't know if it's not like I don't know. Maybe this is semantics. It's not like a block the way that people tend to describe it. To me, it's just like a mindset that I need to adjust.
Okay. Right. Right.
And the more you do it, the more you face failure and lack of progress, I think the better you get at just being like, that's part of life, and that's part of the creative process for sure.
Yes.
The thing is, I used to when I would write a draft, it would be really bad and messy, and
mm-hmm.
I would step back from it and think, man, that's garbage. I'm a crappy writer, and I'm a fraud, and I'm wasting my time. But then I started thinking about, like, think of it as building a house, right? I've never built a house, but from what I understand, you need a foundation upon which to build the rest of the house. When you build that foundation, it's not a particularly sexy part of the process, but once you've built it, but it's necessary. And once you've built it, you don't step back and look at the foundation and go, oh, that's not a house. I guess I wasted my time. You just continue building the damn thing. So I've tried to change my mindset to be like, whatever you're doing, you're building it. And you will get
that's a great visual. Symbolism. Yeah. I think that simplifies it for a lot of people who don't understand the complex process of writing, right?
People,
not to dismiss it, but just to simplify it for someone like myself.
It might sound like goofy, pretentious writerly talk, but I've been thinking about this project as building a novel as opposed to writing it. And to anyone else, that might just seem like a meaningless distinction. But to me, when I think about writing a novel, it feels like I have to sit down and just have everything flow out of me and have it be good. Whereas building feels more like trial and error, which is more reflective of the process so far, at least for me. I'm sure there are people that can just like bang one out. I mean, there's evidence of that. People are very prolific and they write these books that really resonate with people. For me, I'm more of like a tinkerer until I get there sort of guy, trial and error. But whatever, everyone's process.
That gives me a lot of clarity, though, Arnold. I mean, I think in reality, that's probably the best way to approach anything, really, is to build it. Like me, whenever I got involved with a project, sadly, I went from A to Z and messed up in the middle. I realized there's a step process to get to the final goal. So I've never achieved that. So, I mean, your concept is very, it's more methodical. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
And it's also intuition has a lot to do with it. I do think that creative types tend to have an intuition, and you do well to follow that intuition. But I don't know, not to get too off topic, but I don't know if as a man or as a male person, not necessarily always taught to trust intuition. You're taught to go by facts and stuff, and that's an important part of being alive for sure. But like, to me, intuition is like knowing something to be true without actually having the facts, and you're feeling your way through it, and that definitely comes into play with creativity for me anyway, and I imagine for anyone.
Well, they say it's the seventh sense, and we ignore it all the time. Afterwards you go, oh my God, I had a feeling, or I was just thinking of you, and then you run into that person. Why are we taught to squash that or push that down?
I have my tinfoil theories, but I don't know. I think as a species, we're just, we're evolving, but maybe not always as our ability to evolve intellectually and emotionally seems outpaced by technology and pursuit of wealth. I think those things obscure our existence. Incidentally, this is kind of related to what I'm trying to get at in a story. And it's like, one of the challenges is trying to write about stuff that is heavy and fundamental to human beings, but in a way that's not pretentious or just a drag to read about. You want to give someone something that's worth their time to read, but that is palatable. I'm not looking to like throw people off with a 800-page thing that like challenges their very who they are as a person. I want to entertain, but also have there be some kind of, you want to get to the end of it and feel like, oh, I'm glad I read that. I'm glad I spent the whatever, however long it takes to read it.
Right. So do you still read now?
I do, but not nearly enough. And that's a struggle I have, because I don't want to find myself consciously aping the style of a writer that I respect. But you're going to have influences regardless of whether they're at the forefront of your mind or in the background. So I don't always read like novels when I'm writing, when I'm working on fiction. But like right now, for instance, I picked up a book on, it's basically a book on quantum physics. I am not a scientist. I don't have any real background in science. I'm a complete layman, and I couldn't begin to explain to you quantum physics. But I just find it really exciting to read about the universe on a subatomic level and on a wide expansive level from someone who is intelligent enough to grasp these concepts and then repackage them in a way that I can understand, my goofball self. It's just, I don't know, that is the kind of stuff that I'll do when I'm writing a novel, is like something that's to anyone else would seem completely unrelated, but I know that in some way it's going to bleed through into what I'm doing. I just don't know how. And it's less about style, and it's more just about like the ideas that come through.
So are you a sponge as far as human nature? Do you study people also?
Yeah, I don't think as a writer I need to be more observant of like inanimate objects. Like when I was at the library, you walk down the same hallways 1,000 times, and I remember looking at a painting and being like, I wonder, they must have just hung that painting. I don't recall seeing that there. And then I asked my boss, and he was like, that's been there for the entire time that you've worked here. So like, I have that blind spot, but what I really tend to notice is people, human behaviors. I tend to, like when I'm in a social interaction with a bunch of people, I always find myself looking for the subtext, if there is any, between two or more people, which there often is. I'm fascinated by people for sure.
You like them?
I like people once I get to know them. I have found that it's easy for me to say that I'm like misanthropic or, hate humanity because of humanity's arrogance or callousness or selfishness or greed. There's obviously a lot to dislike about humanity, but then when I meet someone, even if I disagree with them, you do end up just realizing, right, they're a person. The spectrum of human behavior and emotion is vast. The truth is vast and complicated. And I'm not a sociopath, so I have the ability to empathize with somebody else, even if our situations are different. And you always just end up realizing, right, we're all people, we're human animals, and,
Well, that's very fair.
Regardless.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So does your observations, do they translate into your writing?
Yeah, but the thing is, I have this real tendency to try and get at some kind of truth through surreal or absurd hyperbole. I just find it fun and interesting. I think that might be partially a lack of confidence about presenting something in a way that's naturalistic. Like maybe I'm not a developed enough writer yet to render, just two people sitting in a room talking, to me seems, as a writer, dull unless I can introduce some kind of, surreal bent to it. However, I'm sure there are plenty of writers who can take a relatively banal scenario and have it be this, heart-rendingly beautiful thing just because they're operating on a different level. So I'm just saying, for me, I tend to favor couching any observations in like kind of a, surreal context.
So Arnold, are you a simple man?
Probably.
No, it doesn't sound like it.
I mean, I think people.
Very interesting. I mean, are you? Do you think you're a simple man?
I think the human animal is a complex and complicated one. I'm simple in the sense that I don't really, personally, I'm just like, just give me like fun people and some fun sensory experiences, like a.
Are you a joiner? Were you an athlete?
Not much of an athlete. I played sports as a kid. When you're a kid, you kind of just try everything and do whatever your parents kind of nudge you in the direction of. And like I played Little League, I played baseball as a kid, and I was never really that great. Couldn't really hit the ball. I was
did you care?
Yeah, I mean, I used to cry. I would strike out and I would go back to the dugout crying. It was just humiliating. It didn't feel right in my body. And by, conversely, but, kind of the flip side to that was when I would sit down and write, it felt good in my body and my mind. I felt self-actualized as a 6-year-old, even though I didn't know that term yet. It just felt right. I don't know. That's
great.
The intuition.
That's great.
But sports, like I played, I bowled. I was mediocre bowler. I played volleyball in high school. I was mediocre at that too. So.
But I mean, are you competitive? Because you know what? I don't care if I win or lose a game. I don't play to be competitive. So I mean, I know that might be unusual, but I'm not competitive, and the goal is not to win. I guess I just want to be included somehow. I could care less about winning. That's weird. Is that weird?
I don't know if it's weird. I'm the exact same way. I think my parents, or my dad probably wanted to instill that competitive spirit, not in like a maniacal, deranged way.
No, I'm not even. No, I'm just, it's just like I never could care
I just
less.
don't have it in me.
Yeah, that's me. I don't really care to win.
I think if I was competitive, I think I probably would have written like 10 novels by now if I was competitive professionally, I think I would be farther along or would have already moved on to something else that I was better at. This, I don't know. It's kind of like you. I want to enjoy the thing, enjoy the process.
Yeah, I just never cared if I won. Never. I mean, never. I never cared if I got the A in class. I don't know if that's a bad thing or I don't know. Never bothered me. I mean, there are people who cried if they didn't get the A. Me, I was just happy to pass.
Yeah, I did decent in school. I think I cried in baseball because I just felt so pathetic in that, like I was like, I am out of my element. Everyone's watching.
That's it.
And
Everyone's watching,
my
and here I
parents,
am.
my parents are so loving and supportive. They're like, well, even Babe Ruth, would strike out a lot. And it's like, yeah, but he also was the home run king or whatever. So
Well, that was
it's not
sweet.
really
That's sweet.
yeah.
Okay. Do you believe in the laws of attraction?
What do you mean?
Do you believe manifesting gets you where you want to be? I mean, do you believe, like we talked about intuition, do you believe you get what you give?
Perhaps I tend to think about things in terms of self-fulfilling prophecies, which, like, as a kid, I was, I felt like I was very scrawny and nerdy and not very appealing to girls. And like, you have a crush on a girl, you want to ask her to the dance, but you think to yourself, she's not going to say yes to me. So you don't ask her, and therefore you don't go to the dance with her. And you've brought into
Right.
reality what at first was just in your mind. So I'm trying to apply that in a positive way with the novel, where it's like, I'm writing this friggin' novel. It's happening, I'm doing it. It's going to be done. And yeah, I think there probably is some, I don't know if that's quite the same thing as what you're asking, but it seems.
No, I think it does apply. I think you got to believe, and then you achieve, right?
Yeah. But it can
right.
be hard to do that. It's
No.
easier said than done for sure. Like a lot of
Self-doubt is just an amazing emotion. It wins almost every time.
Yeah, and I'm determined to not let it win with this, at least with this one specific thing. I probably do well to apply it to other.
Yeah, I understand completely. All right, Arnold, this was nice. Let's close it out. Give me one great thought to ponder here in closing. And before we close, would you do this again with me?
Yeah, if you'll have me back, I'd love to.
I would love to. I would love to. All right, give me that profound thought in closing.
I don't know if I'm capable of profundity yet, but one mantra that I created for myself.
Yes.
Because it might be evident, I might just be stating the obvious here, but I have something of a neurotic and anxious mind. So I keep telling myself, don't fixate, appreciate. And that has helped me. Obviously, there's a lot of bad things in life, and you shouldn't, let yourself be taken advantage of and blah, 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 blah. But if you're just trying to get yourself out of the negative spiral, appreciate.
That's good. I like that. I like it. It's simple too. I'm going to use it.
Yeah, pass it off as your own, whatever you need to do.
So, Arnold, do you have an email address or anything like that you want to leave behind?
Well, I have a Substack. It's free, and it's called Neurotica Boston. And I have an email address attached to that, neuroticaboston@gmail.com. If people want to reach out there, they will get me and only me. I'm the only one with access to that.
Okay. All right. Well, I enjoyed this. Thank you for joining me. And we will revisit each other in a couple months. I like that. It was a lot of fun, Arnold. Thank you.
I agree. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for
listening. You as well. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. We'll talk again. Say goodbye.
Bye-bye, everyone.